If you mess around with arithmetic operators in the Python interpreter enough, you might have noticed an interesting observation. If you divide 4 by 1, you end up with 4.0, whereas if you use the floor division, you end up with just 4. Well, why do these two numbers, even though they have the same value, look so different? The answer is Python and all computers in general store the values or store information or data in general into the memory of a computer in different ways, and they're called data types. So let's explore those data types using this thing called a function. Let me talk about what a function is first. We've seen a few, like help is a function. It has those parentheses. Dir is a function. We've seen a few others in some other videos. But basically, a function does something just like any other command. But the special thing about a function is that it can take in an argument. And you've seen this before if you've taken algebra. This is called function notation because it's a function, because it's the same thing. In this case, f is a function that takes in parameters called x, and you can substitute in x for 2 or whatever, 2.4 or whatever, and then it'll do something different based on the value of its inputs. Okay, so function is sort of like, I visualize it as a box. It takes in inputs, does something to them, and produces outputs. Sometimes it's just printing to the screen. Sometimes it's changing the state of something behind the scenes. But a function takes in inputs and produces outputs. This function is called type. I'm going to send in 4.0 to type and see what comes up. I'm also going to send in 4 to type, and I'm also going to send in 4 surrounded by these quotes to type. And this will tell me that I am dealing with 3 different data types. Let's talk about this one first. It's an int, which is short for integer. And if you want help on what integers do, you can type that in, but I'm not going to do it because it's going to print some long output. Integers are just whole numbers. Okay, any number that doesn't have a decimal part to it. Floats do have decimal parts. Float stands for floating point number or floating point arithmetic. You can look that up to get into the details, but I'm not going to. Anything that has a decimal, even if that decimal is 0, it's a float. Okay, and then right here, anything that's surrounded by quotation marks is a str, which is short for string. I'll show you this interesting tidbit too. That also makes a string. So these are quotes. These are single quotes. And we'll talk a lot about strings later, but those are the basic data types in Python. There is one more interesting one that I like. It's called a complex. Let me take that and put that into a variable and then do type on that variable. It's a complex number. So look into those if you're interested.